Hey, welcome back to RV Chef Life. My name's Jonathan. The past couple of days have been pretty cruddy around here. Winds blowing 30 and 40 mile an hour with gusts up to 60, between 30 degrees outside and with a wind chill of 14. So tonight, I'm actually kind of in the mood to make some homemade chicken and dumplings. We're gonna make the dumplings fresh from scratch, no biscuits. Let's get started.
Step 1, wake up early, gonna rise with the sun. Step 2, get some good, some food in you. Step 3, think real hard about what you wanna be. Step 4, everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. 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 Wake up, today's gonna be a good day.
All right, the first thing we're gonna do is turn on our pot, about low medium. We wanna get that pot kind of tempered up to temperature before we crank it up. While we're waiting for that pot to warm up, what we'll do is go ahead and season the chicken. You're gonna use about 3 chicken breasts. It comes to about a pound and a half of chicken. I season pretty simply with just salt and pepper. You can add other spices if you'd like, but with all the other flavors mixing in, salt and pepper is just fine. Don't forget to season both sides of the chicken. Now that the pot is warmed up a little bit, I'm gonna go ahead and crank it on high. Once you do that, let that pot go ahead and bring up to temperature. Grab a little water in your hand. When it's ready, you'll see the water will bounce off like BBs in the pan. Then we'll add the oil at that point in time, put our chicken in. You'll see the bubbles are still moving around, bubbles of water. They're rolling around like BBs, so we'll go ahead and add 2 tablespoons of oil, olive oil. That's just the water you're hearing in there once the oil hits. Go ahead and make sure your pot is completely coated in the bottom. Let's go ahead and turn down the pot back to medium high. And we'll go ahead and lay our chicken in. Don't move it around, just let it sit and mingle. It's gonna char up on the bottom. I use stainless steel pans. Once you get it up to temperature and you have it hot like that when you lay the chicken in, chicken, beef, or whatever you're cooking, you want the food to just sit there in the spot you put it in until it chars the bottom and it will release really easy and not make a mess. While we're waiting for the chicken to cook, we're gonna go ahead and get our vegetables ready. You're gonna use 4 stalks of celery, a white onion, small to medium size, and carrots. The carrots I'm using are already sliced up, so what you'll want is about a cup of each vegetable. And I went on a trip last weekend and ended up breaking my chopper, so you're gonna get to watch my knife skills, so don't make fun of me. On the onion, I'll make the pieces pretty small, chop it up pretty small because it'll kind of melt into the soup when it's done. With the other vegetables, I leave fairly large because I want them to be prominent. And as I mentioned previously, the carrots I bought these as matchsticks, so no chopping necessary. You're gonna use about a cup. I'm gonna go ahead and reach in the pot and see how the chicken's doing. If it releases, then it's time to flip. If not, then we need to let it sit. Some of them are releasing, some's not, so we're gonna go ahead and leave it there, which is fine. The dough for the dumpling part of the chicken and dumplings is gonna be flour, salt, water, baking powder, and butter. Let's start with the butter. I set this stick out not that long ago, about 10-15 minutes ago. You're gonna use about a half to 3/4 of a stick, which is gonna be 4 to 6 tablespoons of butter. What we're gonna do is try to get them in small pieces as possible, so that way we can mix and blend it in the flour shortly. This is basically the same recipe that I use for my drop biscuits. recipe coming later. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna add 1.5 cups of flour to a bowl. You're gonna add half a teaspoon to the flour and about a teaspoon to a teaspoon and a half of salt. Kind of want them salty to help flavor that dumplings whenever they go into the soup. But let's start with the 1.5 cups of flour first. Followed by a half a teaspoon of baking powder. And then your salt. Take a break from the dough balls real quick. We're going to go ahead and check that chicken. It looks like it needs turned. You'll notice the chicken releases and has a great coating on it. Oh, don't throw your chicken. Back to the dumplings. Once you get everything in there dry-wise, go ahead and mix it up with your hands. And we're going to throw that butter in there. Try to get all of it in the pot. What you want to do is rub the flour around, get that butter coated with the flour, and then you're going to smash and basically make that flour consume all the butter, and it'll feel like sand. You'll just mash it and pinch it between your fingers and continue to do that until it's incorporated in the flour. You'll notice here the texture is already kind of getting to look like wet sand, but I can still feel clumps of butter in there. Continue to work it. Okay, now you can see the texture. You see how it looks different than flour when we started? It even feels like wet sand if you've ever had sand on your feet. All right, the dough for the dumplings is almost ready. We're gonna add 3/4 cups of water to it. I pour it in slow, turn it. That way I don't get club fingers from the water being added to it. But it's inevitable, it usually happens. All right, let's go ahead and slowly start adding the water. I didn't mention this earlier, but when you're adding water, you kind of want to add it slow because flour is always going to be different depending on what type of flour you're using or the humidity or the moisture that's in the flour. So 3/4 cup is a good start. Sometimes you'll add a little bit more and sometimes you'll use a little bit less. Just go off of visual sight. When your dough starts to come together, you're just going to go ahead and knead it in the bowl for a couple minutes, not too terribly long. And then we're just going to set it to the side. I normally use my KitchenAid mixer for this, or anything dough related. It's just easier for me. But I know that most people don't full-time in their motorhomes or RVs, so they probably don't carry a KitchenAid mixer blender with them. I do, I'm a little extra. But I wanted to show that it can be done with hands too. Okay, we have a dough formed. Go ahead and fold this in on itself like this. Get any extra pieces off your fingers or hands. We're just going to set this to the side and let it rest a little bit in the same pot or bowl that you mixed it in. All right, once your chicken's ready to pull out, I'm going to show you a little trick not to dirty up additional dishes. We're going to take all of our vegetables. We're just going to throw them in there. And then we're going to go fish our chicken out. Make sure to leave most of the vegetables in there. And just put them in the same bowl. Now with these vegetables, I'm going to use the remainder 2 tablespoons of butter I had. You can do butter or olive oil. Get it in the bottom of the pan and get your butter melted. and get your vegetables coated with all that butter. I'm going to add a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper, just for flavoring. It also helps speed up the cooking time. Salt draws out the moisture. Once you get the chicken out, you're going to let it sit for a little bit. You're going to let it soak that moisture back up into the chicken. If you cut it too early, it'll turn to dry chicken. I know that it's going in a soup, but we want it as moist as possible. Once those vegetables get cooked down some, we're going to go ahead and add 1 or 2 tablespoons of garlic, depending on your garlic preference. I always add 2. I really like garlic, but we don't want to add it too early because if we do, then the garlic will burn. Let's go ahead and roll out that dough and get it cut up and ready while we wait for the vegetables. Continue to stir the vegetables while we do this. I actually have a rolling pin in my motorhome. I do a lot of baking fresh breads and stuff, but if you don't have a rolling pin, you can use a can of beer, can of Coke, soda, anything, just to roll it out. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're not making pie crust here. Just roll it out so we can cut up our dumplings. Just flour your work surface. Go ahead and push it out by hand. Keep it uniformed. Go ahead and flip it over so that way we get some of that flour on the other side as well. And go ahead and press it out. Now you can make your dumplings as big or as small as you want, so that depends on thickness of the dough. Put flour on my rolling pin. I'm just going to roll this out. Move this chicken out of the way. Go ahead and flip it, make sure it's not sticking. That's what we don't want happen to stick. I generally roll mine out to about a 1/4 inch thick. There we go, it's rolled out. Grab your longest knife that you have. You're gonna go ahead and flour this as well. Be careful when you're flouring it. Or you can actually just put some flour on the top so it doesn't stick when you're cutting it. There will be some stickiness because the dough is still a little wet. And what I do is just cut them in long strips. And again, they don't have to be perfect. Taking a pause from the dough, I'm going and stirring the vegetables. Once you see the onions get translucent, that's when you can add the garlic. What I do is go ahead and put flour back in the bowl that we were working with the dough originally. I'm going to set it just to the side here. Sorry, it might be out of camera shot. And just cut the dumplings to whatever size you want them. I separate them after I cut them, put them in that flour. See, I keep my dumplings fairly small. I like the dumplings and the chicken and everything to be the same size when I'm eating. Go ahead and grab the other ones and get those cut up as well. See that the onions are pretty translucent now. I'm going to go ahead and add the garlic. Go ahead and mix those around in there with it. Last bit of dumplings, go ahead and shake it around, get them coated with flour so that way they don't stick. Alright, with the dumplings ready to go and set to the side, we're going to go ahead and chop up the chicken. But before that, we're going to grab our liquids for the soup. You're going to use 1 cup of heavy cream, or half and half if you're watching your weight. Both are fat, both are delicious. And 3 cups of water. And to that water, or to the mix, I'll add 2 tablespoons of chicken bouillon powder. Once you've given time for the garlic to cook, go ahead and give it a stir. We're gonna add 2 to 3 tablespoons of flour to it to make a roux. We're gonna let that cook a little bit before we add our liquid to it. That's 2 heavy teaspoons. Go and stir it around and get it mixed up with that oil or butter that you'd used. We'll let that cook. Get that rawness gone. We're always going to add the water first to the mix and not the cream, or half and half. The reason we want to do that is because we want the water to go in first. It will cool the pan down pretty well, and we'll put our cream in. If you put the cream in first, you could possibly curdle the milk. Right before you add your liquids, turn your cooktop on high as possible. It's going to help release the bits off the bottom. That's going to tighten up the soup. It's going to be delicious. I push all my vegetables to the side like this right before it goes down. Just gives me a fighting chance to get all the good yumness off the top. That's 1, 2, 3 cups of water. Ooh, I hope I have a full cup of heavy whipping cream. Go ahead and stir your vegetables around once you get all your liquids in. Going to go ahead and add the 2 tablespoons of chicken powder. You can use chicken stock as well if you'd prefer. I just use that instead because I always have water around the bus and less storage for the boxes of chicken broth. We want that to come up to a boil so we can start cooking the dumplings. While we wait for that to come up to a boil, we're going to go ahead and chop up the chicken. As I mentioned before, I like the chicken to be about the same size as the dumplings, so that's what we're going to strive for right now. We'll put that chicken right back in the same bowl that we pulled it out from because it had some of the juice left, so let's let that chicken soak up that juice while we wait for the pot to boil. And go ahead and set the chicken back to the side. Once you get to a rolling boil, go ahead and make 1 stir. We're going to go ahead and drop our dumplings in one at a time without making a mess, and we all know that I do that. You're going to cook these for about 3 to 5 minutes. And this will take some time to get them all in there. You want to incorporate it slowly. If not, then you'll just have a big glob of dough at the bottom. Once you do a couple handfuls, go ahead and give it a nice stir. That won't let the dumplings stick together. And from this point out, we're going to go ahead and stir after each handful. We're starting to fill the pot up, so there's still the same amount of liquid, but we're starting to add a lot of dough, and it'll expand a little bit while it's cooking. It'll expand so much you'll see just a layer of dumplings at the very top. That's why we want to start stirring after every handful to get the uncooked dumplings down in the liquid. Now that we have all the dumplings in there, what we're going to do is let those cook for about 2 to 3 minutes. While we're waiting for that, we're going to chop up the parsley. The parsley is going to add color to the dish and a little bit of flavor. Add just a little handful to it. Go ahead and turn your pot down to low. Once your parsley's in, we're going to add the chicken. Make sure you get that bowl completely empty and completely dry. And that there is homemade chicken and dumplings made in an RV or a small kitchen space. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the pot off so that way it can cool down a little bit so we can do a taste test. All right, I've ladled out my chicken and dumplings. It looks absolutely delicious. It's still steaming. First thing I'm gonna do is go in for a taste test of a dumpling. So good. It's always so good. Pretty simple. You can have this done in 30-45 minutes, depending on how good you are with dough. Thanks for stopping by tonight. I appreciate you coming and spending your time with me. Please comment below. That really helps drive the channel. Like, share, and subscribe also will do the same. But I like comments, I like reading them, and I like responding. So thanks for stopping by. Until next time, have a good night, and we'll see you soon.